All right, we are live.
Good, thank you, Ron. Welcome. This is Tuesday, October 20th, Ways and Means Committee meeting, virtual due to COVID-19 pandemic. First item on the agenda is call to order and acknowledgement that the press and public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Nicole, you want to do roll call just so we can make sure we have quorum and such?
Absolutely. Councilmember Buchanan,
Here.
Councilmember Ward,
Here.
Councilmember Moy,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Bell,
Here.
Councilmember Streetman,
Here.
Councilmember Popson,
Here.
Mayor Carroll,
Here.
Chair Pounds.
Here.
You have a quorum?
Thank you, Nicole. Second item is approval of previous meeting minutes. Do I have a motion and a second?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Rusty. Any edits or comments, changes? Seeing or hearing none. All those in favor, oh, sorry, Nicole, you want to do roll call?
Absolutely. Councilmember Bell,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan,
Aye.
Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
Chair Pounds.
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you. Next item is citizens' comments. Nicole, I think we just have one for tonight, if you don't mind reading that into the record.
Absolutely. From Wendy Roper at 512 Palm Boulevard. I continue to support renegotiating with Tidal Wave Sports to renew their lease. And that is all you have for comments this evening.
Very good. Thank you, Nicole. Next item is financial statements. Ms. Suggs, you're on mute, so why don't you join us and run through that if you don't mind, please.
Sure. Ron, could you put up the So we are a quarter of a way through the city's fiscal year already, which is kind of hard to believe. So if you take a big picture look at it, you can see that total year-to-date actual revenues for all funds is $2.6 million. That's compared to $3,012,000 this time last year. So, and that was, of course, last year's number would have been pre-COVID. So that's a $355,000 swing to the negative, but that's almost entirely, it is entirely comprised of or due to the reduction in tourism revenues, primarily the payment that we did not receive from Charleston County. That payment was $370,000 in July of 2019. So again, big picture, even with COVID, the city is in decent shape. We are behind where we were last year, but it's all related to tourism impacts. The general fund, you can see below there, is slightly ahead of where we were last year. Although business licenses are down 50,000 year over year, rental licenses are up significantly. And in fact, we've already beat the budget for rental licenses for the whole fiscal year. That's good news. And you can see there that parking revenues are strong compared to the prior year. We had a collection of local option sales tax this year. That's just a timing difference over last year. But revenues in the general fund look good. Again, taking the wide angle view of expenditures, year to date, a little over $4 million has been spent, total funds, total of all funds. That's about $1 million higher than we were this time last year. But that's almost entirely related to the public safety building repair project. And I think it's been talked about that that project is ahead of schedule and under budget. So it's going well. And this is a budgeted expense, of course. I think we'll probably end up beating the budget on that project, which is good news. If you talking about general fund expenditures specifically, in the bottom right-hand box. Total expenditures in the general fund are 2.5 million approximately, compared to a little less than that, 2.4 million this time last year. There are some professional expenses in the general government department related to strategic planning that we didn't have last year. The police department is more fully staffed than it was last year, and we've had an increase in some insurance costs. That kind of explains the swing from last year to this year on general fund expenditures, but we are still within budget. We should be at 25% if we were on target, and we're at 22% expended. So that's all good news. Next page, Ron, I'll just touch on cash balances. Total cash balances are a little over $19.5 million. 18 million of that is at the LGIP, earning a not a very good interest rate, but probably as good as we're going to get for safe deposits that are very liquid. And then $1.5 million at BB&T. Of that total, 7.7 million is restricted. Okay, moving on to, right here, municipal accommodations fee. You can see that we are ahead of budget, but behind the prior year. Since this report went out, we did receive the September payment, and it was $187,000 roughly. So you can see that that is higher than FY20 and significantly higher than budget. So if you add that amount in, we are only $32,000 off year to date in MENA tax, which would be the same thing for beach preservation fee. So I find that very encouraging. And what I'm seeing is there have been some collection issues that are catching up. So various accommodations taxpayers might not have made payments for a while when COVID was really impacting businesses and things were shut down, but now they're catching up. So in that $187,000 payment, I saw some June and July kind of catch-up payments, which seems to indicate that we might not have been as slow in July and August even as we thought, because now we're catching up. Payments are becoming more current. And I suspect that is the case with hospitality tax as well. So next page, nothing to report on this page. We have not received the state A-tax quarterly payment yet, which is not unusual. And we've already talked about the county payment that we're not going to see. Here on hospitality tax, you can see that we are behind the prior year and behind what we thought we were going to get in the FY21 budget. Again, I think this is being impacted by some late payments or some payments that haven't been made that we will see. But it's also impacted by the Wild Dunes kind of shutdown. Wild Dunes and all the restaurants and bars within Wild Dunes are a pretty good chunk of hospitality tax revenue. So the fact that those are not where they would normally be is really impacting us.
I have a
Hey,
question.
Susan, question? Yep.
Yes, I think I heard that Wild Dunes was getting back online. I mean, I know that they had totally shut down, I believe, until the middle of August, but where are they now? I think I heard that they were even starting to have some convention business, and I'm curious to know if the hotels are.
Yeah,
Operating.
the hotel is open, Susan, but corporate events for this fall have completely been canceled.
Okay.
According to the resort.
Okay.
Desiree, unless you have more current information.
No.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
the
And
information
Susan,
is
just real quick, I think the hotel did open back up maybe mid-August. I mean, the dates kind of run together, but just to Debbie's point, most of the hotels, bars, or restaurants and bars are still shut down. There's one open, I think, maybe.
And what's the latest projection on the new hotel opening date?
Still April, March, April timeframe. Yep.
Okay,
Yep. Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Debbie. Sorry.
All right, next page, we'll briefly talk about local option sales tax. We've just had one payment so far this fiscal year. I think it was. Can you flip the page one time, Ron? Sorry. Yeah, so slightly behind FY20, but ahead of what we thought, what we predicted in the budget. Next, I'll go on to the project worksheets. So we've got 3 big projects going on right now.
Hey, Debbie,
First-
real quick, before you go there,
Mhm.
I would just, for everybody's benefit, we're under here, over there, but the big number items, the accommodation fee, I'm hopeful the county accommodation should come in a pretty good spot. Hospitality tax, we're definitely low, but I'm feeling pretty optimistic about where we sit, given these first 3 months of our budget receipts from a revenue standpoint. Hopefully that's obvious as Debbie's making comments and walking through here. There's a timing difference on some of this stuff, but I mean, you look at this page of the local option sales tax, we had budgeted 70,000 roughly, and we've taken in almost 88,000 for August. So like I said, I know we all had a lot of trepidation and concern and commentary on our budget for this year. And we talked about, potentially revisiting our budget and making adjustments as time marches on. I don't think we're ready to do that, a few months in, but it feels pretty decent. Debbie, to your comment, not to just repeat your story, but most of our big numbers feel pretty good right now. So.
All right, public safety building, as I mentioned before, this project is ahead of schedule and under budget slightly, even with a big hunk of contingency that has not been spent. So if you go on to the next page, Ron.
Debbie, is that a CPA term, a hunk of contingency? Is that what you're saying?
Say that again?
A hunk.
Oh, a hunk of contingency. No, that is not an official accounting term.
Official accounting term is bunches.
Got it. Or another word we probably can't say on here. Yeah.
Right.
So we have a little over 700,000 in unspent contingency, which is good to see this late in the game.
I also wanted to add, so that 700,000 contingency is the contingency that the city is managing away or apart from the contract amount. As I mentioned before in previous meetings, there is another built-in contingency included in the Trident contract, and of that we have roughly 290,000 also in contingency that have been unspent as of right now, and we don't anticipate any major change orders at this point.
So conceivably, this project could come in $1 million under budget, which is great. Next page is the Marina dock. So in the next breath, I have to say that this project is $1.2 million over budget. Again, we budgeted without having, without the benefit of the RFP results. The amount we budgeted for the bulkhead recoating was way low. So if we add those things in, you can see that we've added under the contracts and change orders received, you can see 922, the salmon dredging contract, which includes an $86,000 e-pay decking addition and the $804,000 bulkhead recoating. we thought that bulkhead recoating was going to cost $334,000 in the budget. So you add that construction contract in with the ATM design and management costs, and we're at 4.5 million total expected on the project. And then we did not have any expenditures in September against that.
Debbie, before you go through phase 3 drainage, let me take an opportunity to give you all an update on that project, the dock project. We had the pre-construction meeting today, this morning, with the contractor and also the contractor, the subcontractor that will be doing the work on the bulkhead. We have the marina operator and also the future restaurant tenants also in attendance. Currently, I will send you all via email a more detailed schedule for the project, but right now we're looking at starting the work in the bulkhead, which is deep cleaning and recoating, starting that in November, and through November and December, conducting some upland utility work. And then the first shipment of the floating docks is expected to come in early January, and then the second shipment to come in February. So as we have talked in the past, this project will be done in phases. The first phase will include removing and installing the docks along Morgan Creek to the right of the boat ramp, so those that are adjacent and attached to the fuel dock, and those in front of the marina store. And then the second phase followed, closely by the replacement of the docks in front of the restaurant, still along Morgan Creek. So we're moving along. Obviously, everybody's very excited about getting this project completed.
All right. Next is drainage phase 3. I don't think there's a lot to talk about here. We have not, of course, don't have an RFP out yet for the construction. The expenses in September are basically design related. So that's all I have, unless there are any questions.
Any questions for Debbie?
Mr. Chair,
Mayor? Yes, sir.
RFP for the drainage, when is that expected to go out?
Desiree, you want to?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mayor, we don't have a concrete timeline yet or schedule from Thomas & Hutton. We're working with them on that. We had a meeting with them about a week and a half ago, working on some of the issues that we have been facing, particularly related to permitting and some easements that need to be secured with Waldoons. So as soon as we have a more detailed schedule on that project, we will share that with you all, but it's still in the design phase. That they're about 80% done with the specs, and after that we'll be submitting for permits. Douglas, did I miss anything that should be included?
No, I think that covers it. As I think we've said before, the complication is crossing Waldoons golf course. So that really is the kind of the hold on the design. So once we can get that ironed out, we should be in a good position to submit for permits.
I only asked that question because this past week with the high tides we had, I mean, no wind, no storms, just at high tides going halfway up 41st Avenue, blocking off our fire station. I mean, to me, it's just getting worse and worse. Thank you.
Yep. This weekend certainly highlighted how important this project is and how welcomed it will be once it's completed.
Other questions, comments for Debbie? No, Debbie, thank you very much for all the work involved. And I know in the middle of audit season too as well. So thank you for that. Our next item we want to hit is old business discussion and consideration of marina restaurant lease proposal from the IOP Families Investment Group. We have spent, as a Ways and Means and Council, a whole lot of time in executive session. So I thought it might be nice to spend a little bit of time on the timeline and high level attributes of the lease agreement that hopefully, I don't even want to jinx it, that we're going to sign this week, maybe, possibly. So Ron, if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen again one more time. Desiree, if you want to run through the timeline, first couple of pages, that would be great. And then I'll hit some of their lease arrangements, if you don't mind.
Of course, absolutely. Ron, I think you need to go to the second page. Alrighty. I think I guess it's very helpful to go back and remind ourselves the long process that we all have endured in getting this work underway, and this extends all the way back to 2018 when the council decided to pursue a request for proposals method to obtain and secure a new lease for the restaurant. After that, in November, the city hired Hill Construction to perform a building assessment of an assessment of the restaurant building to understand the current condition and options of what could be done for rebuilding or renovating that work. That project was presented to the Real Property Committee in May, and shortly before that, the city hired Lee and Associates to assist and advise the city through the RFP process and also represent the city in the lease negotiations. Back in June, the city, after the city hired Lee and Associates, in June, the city put out the RFP and the call for offers and seeked proposals all over for the use of the restaurant space and the designated dock for the use by restaurant patrons. That call for offers was out for several months, and the deadline to submit proposals was back in August 2019. At that time, the city received 3 proposals, which were presented to the community and the public in a special city council meeting that was held in September. City council and the staff reviewed those proposals, and after several meetings and deliberations in December of 2019, the city decided to enter into exclusive negotiations with the IOP Families Group and granted a 90-day due diligence period. Coming to 2020, in March of this year, the mayor declared a state of emergency due to COVID, and normal city operations were suspended. All meetings were suspended other than emergency meetings, and those were resumed in May. Next page, Ron. In April, the IOP Families Group requested an extension to their due diligence period, which was granted. There were some complications as it related to COVID and timing and securing contractors, and that happened again in April. And then in July, the city engaged Hainsworth, Sinclair & Boyd to represent the city as a real estate attorney to develop the lease agreement. Took about a month to develop several weeks to develop the first draft of the lease agreement that represented the items that had been agreed to by the city through a letter of intent. And for the next 3 months, there have been ongoing legal review, executive sessions with council, reviewing the agreement between both parties and their respective representation. We are hoping today we submitted through our attorneys the last final version of the lease agreement that represents, again, what the city has agreed to with the IOP Families Group. And we are hoping that we receive a final approval from the IOP Families Group, and we can move forward with ratifying, for City Council to move forward with ratifying the agreement by ordinance. And should that happen very soon, hopefully we can start that next Tuesday and follow up with second reading. We can ratify the agreement, and the restaurant can begin their renovation work. And their plans is to be open by next spring and summer, potentially a different or smaller operation in the spring, outdoors, and be fully opened by July.
Thank you, Desiree. So Mayor, I thought we would just hit some highlights here, and then if we can get everything finalized for next week's council meeting, we will spend some more time on the financial objectives of the lease. But tonight, I thought it'd just be helpful for, not so much for council, but just for residents that may be watching to hear the timeline and then some of the specifics of the lease that we can talk about in open forum. So just quick overview: complete renovation of the building and improved landscaping and parking. City will not be directly investing into the property or the building. No public funds will be used during the term of the lease on the building or the restaurant grounds. Private investors will be responsible for the entire capital investment and risk, the construction management and risk, and the ongoing care and maintenance of a city-owned asset. The tenant that we hope to enter into an agreement with is the IOP Families Investment Group, led by the Lorenz and Bushnell families, to include Michael Tall. Tenant's use: tenant will absorb all costs to renovate the existing structure with additional outdoor seating. Landlord, the city, has final approval rights before construction begins. Ron, if you'll flip. City will deliver restaurant dock space in as-in condition to be used by the restaurant patrons. Lease commencement date immediately upon full lease execution, to Desiree's point, hopefully within the next few business days. Rent commencement date is August 1st of 2021. However, again, we're looking for an opening prior to that in the March, April, spring kind of time frame. Lease term shall expire on January 31st, 2045, coincident with the expiration of the existing tenant. Tenant shall be responsible for all operating expenses, all expenses, including maintenance, insurance, and utilities, a true triple net lease. So again, those are the highlights without getting into the financial aspects of it. We'll try and do that next week at council, Mr. Mayor, if that works out time frame wise, but glad to answer questions or hear comments or whatever somebody may have. Randy.
So it's worth noting, several people have asked, we started out with, this was going to be a new building. And just a comment on that. A new building would have come with obviously a much higher price tag, but it also would have changed where that building could be located. There were setback issues related to DHEC OCRM that made using existing foundation and structure more prudent than demolishing the entire structure and having to start over. And just a final comment. As the current longest serving member of Real Property, this has been a journey. And I got to tell you, it has been complex. A lot of time put in by Councilmember Ward, myself, Councilmember Ferenc, and others to get here. And we really look forward to having a fully populated and functional marina again, complete with the docks.
Thank you, Randy. Other comments or questions? I know this was not new information to anybody on the screen, but certainly for the residents, that was primarily objective to get that out from executive session. Desiree, anything else from your view?
When's the party when we're done?
Soon. Soon. It is worthy of celebrating for sure.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir. Sorry, Mayor.
just for our residents' sake, if they go to IOP.net and look under government, on the left-hand side, we have a highlight called projects, and somebody can go in there and look at all of our major projects and look at the timeline of everything. So it's just kind of a way to kind of follow up on where we stand with each project.
Yeah, thank you. And there's, I think, 4 or 5 of our major projects going on right now that are highlighted on IOP.net. Thank you, Mayor. All right, nothing else. We'll move on to new business. Our first item is discussion and consideration of roof repairs to the Public Works Workshop to address ceiling condensation issues in an amount not to exceed $23,000. Desiree, do you want to give just a little, or Robert, a little feedback here before we go into a motion and a vote?
Yes, I'll go ahead and before I let Robert maybe get into a little bit more of the details of the project, this was presented to the Public Works Committee for approval. Again, was approved in an amount not to exceed $23,000. There are some ceiling condensation issues that we became aware with the building after the other renovation was completed. you know, bottom line, there was an understanding that there were some roof leaks that were causing some of the damage into the ceiling tiles, and after a more thorough assessment, we learned that the building is not insulated at all, and it needs a significant amount of work for it to be fixed. So we have Trident team, as you all know, working on the public safety building, so we reached out to them and try to get them to give us a quote, which was very reasonable considering the amount of work that needs to happen in the roof, and we want to take advantage of them being on site. I think that's part of the reason why this quote is so fairly reasonable. And we have been trying to secure additional quotes from other vendors. It is such a small project that we're having trouble even getting people on site to quote. So we want to we're going to continue to do our due diligence to get additional quotes and comply with the city's procurement code, but it's proven to be somewhat difficult, and we don't want to, the good thing is the public safety building project is ahead of schedule, but we don't want to let those guys go before we can get this work underway. So Robert, why don't you speak a little bit more detail about the work that's going to be done as part of the scope?
Sure. Yeah, shortly after the renovation was complete on the Public Works building, we noticed some staining on the ceiling tiles, like Desiree said, and we thought it was attributed to the roof. The contractor came back, checked the roof, told us that our ductwork was sweating due to the fact that we have an open gable. Then it's basically a tin, metal roof, cinder block walls, and it's all hot space above that. So when you have your ductwork running through such a hot space, it'll start to sweat. We then reached out to our AC contractor, which told us that we could insulate the ductwork. We did that; it was reasonable. But just the conflict with the two air masses just hitting each other up there, especially during August. I mean, the ceiling was actually leaking just from condensation. So at that point, I was speaking to Trident and on an unrelated issue, and they said if they had anything big or small, they were around for us. So they came over immediately with their insulation contractors and basically gave us a quote to from start to finish what would insulate that ceiling, removing the old insulation, closing off the gable vent, and then it would give us a controlled airspace above the ductwork, above the ceiling tile, which will then stop the ducts from sweating.
Thank you, Robert. Desiree. When we go to is, I'll make the motion that we address ceiling condensation issues in an amount not to exceed $23,000 for the Public Works workshop.
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you, Rusty. Other questions? Desiree, go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, obviously this particular project was not budgeted specifically in the Public Works maintenance line item. As you all know, this is the second year that we have been budgeting contingency for each department and each facility. For Public Works, it is a little bit, it's around $13,000, so not quite enough to cover this project. But as we have talked about earlier, a healthy contingency that we still have for the public safety building, we're proposing using a portion of that to cover this project.
Thank you, Desiree. Discussion, questions, comments?
Desiree, how much was that contingency on the public safety building again?
700 and something thousand.
Plus 200 from,
Close to $1 million
Okay.
between what we're controlling and what the Trident is controlling, which is returned back to the city, whatever is not used.
Mayor,
So
do you
good
have?
job.
yes, sir, I did.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anytime we have these major projects, we haven't in the past had an independent third party oversee these contracts. I mean, here we are getting ready to do a major lease down at the marina, and I hope that they use contractors who are as diligent as Trident has been with us. I can't say enough good things about Trident and the jobs they've done for us. But again, we need to be watching our contracts and our contractors by a third party, independent.
Other questions, comments? Nicole, you want to roll call vote us, please?
You're on mute, Nicole.
Sorry, Councilmember Buchanan,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
Chair Pounds,
Aye.
all in favor?
Thank you, Nicole. Our next item is consideration of increase in the approved provision for builder's risk insurance for the Marina Dock Rehabilitation Project by an amount not to exceed $35,000. Desiree, if you want to give a little feedback here before we go to motion and discussion, that'd be great.
Sure. So you all recall council approved, well, that's all of you. So you recall that last month, council approved the budget for the Marina Dock Rehabilitation Project, and that total was around $4.3 million. And that number included a $15,000 provision for builder's risk insurance, which was included in the RFP as an alternate requested of the contractor. Salmon's Dredging, longtime insurance partner, has now advised them that they have changed their appetite in regards to builder's risk. And due to some of the specifics of the marina project, the fact that it's in a coastal location, the increased values of such a large project, the underwriters have declined to offer builder's risk coverage and or pricing for the work in total. It's getting very hard to place builder's risk insurance on marine contractor in coastal vicinities, even when the project is going to be done outside of storm season. A few of the remaining markets that we'll consider are getting substantial rate increases over prior pricing. We reached out to several markets and several brokers in trying to identify a policy that would cover. And Salmon's Insurance through Markel, Salmon's Insurance, it's not the only one that's taking that position. We reached out to the existing property insurer for the docks that we have for currently, and they've declined to offer builder's risk. The only other company that considered, as of right now, that considered writing this policy or this premium said that the premium would be at least double the one that we have currently, that's been offered to the city currently. The best available premium that we have right now is roughly $50,215, which is over and above the $15,000 that council has already approved. It includes a $50,000 deductible. I've been in touch, and Councilmember Popson gracefully put me in touch with a different broker that we're going to be submitting another quote, an application to try to get another quote from a contractor, and we think that we may be able to secure something in the $35,000 to $40,000 range. But that's, we don't have any guarantee. We only have one through Markel Marine, again, through the contractor, that's been willing to write that quote for us. We're going to continue to work with several brokers to try to secure something else, but because that City Council only approved up to $15,000, if we want to pursue and secure this type of policy for the project, I would need council to amend that and increase the budget for that policy. I will say, it's getting harder to get this type of policy for this project. I would really like for us to have it. I've had conversations with the contractor and with ATM, and they have done projects without it. As you all know, builder's risk protects insurable interest in the materials, equipment, while we're awaiting installation and while the project is underway, should those items sustain any physical loss or damage. So it's not that it's essential, they have done projects without it. It's certainly not typical, just because of how difficult it is to secure this types of coverages for dock and projects in coastal communities. So happy to hear any feedback or answer any questions with what we have so far.
Randy,
Yeah, just a question. So if you do not have this insurance, so the materials, the equipment, the potential liabilities all reside with the city or reside with the contractor?
Well, everybody's going to be pointing fingers, that's for sure. But
That's what I thought.
You know, this would protect, let's say there are materials get damaged. Materials that are, you know, in the upland area waiting to be installed. If they're damaged, if we have a fire, if we're halfway through the project and let's say we have a storm and you know, the docks don't make it through the storm, those kind of instances would not be covered. Granted, the project, the floating dock component of the project is starting in January, so it's outside of hurricane season. But we don't know. I mean, it is, look at how crazy 2020 turned out to be. We just have no guarantee. But,
And the real answer is we don't know where the liability resides, because it would be a finger pointing contest
correct.
with multiple parties.
Yep.
Correct. And the project does, the contractor is required to have, you know, general liability, workman's protection, but this really is to protect the project while it's being constructed, protect the materials, protect the equipment that's on site. And we have ways to mitigate for that, and we discussed those with the contractor this morning, but it is a risk that the city is sort of accepting if we don't secure this type of policy.
Yep. Kevin.
I just, you know, as a contractor and a builder, I always supply the builder's risk, and this ship's already left already because back to Randy's point, you know, normally the contractor submits the builder's risk under their pay, and they're paying for it, so the liability rests with them. So in this case, they're not providing it, so I guess we're going to be back to pointing fingers. It's my only comment.
Other questions, comments? Mayor.
Let's let this be a learning curve again for us, such as a third-party overview and also making sure that insurances are all included in these bids for future projects.
And just to clarify, it was included by the contractor as an alternate. It's just between them submitted the bid and them notifying that the council has approved the contract, which happened on the 22nd of September. The original provider that quoted them for builder's risk changed their mind, and they said, we're no longer willing to offer this policy. It's just too risky for us. So that's why we find ourselves in this conundrum.
And Desiree, final comment. I mean, the reliance that we had really was on ATM to advise us on what needed to go into this, I'm presuming, as we've done over and over.
I didn't hear that, Randy. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying, you know, it's not, you know, administration and council sitting around trying to figure this out. We have engaged ATM repeatedly on the marina work. And, you know, somewhere along the way, to the mayor's point, we missed something either in the amount or, you know, not including on the builder side, but, you know, we are having outside advice on how to conduct marina construction projects and marina business. It's not, it's not all falling on administration to have missed something along the way or misquoted it.
No, and it was included in the RFP, as in the contractor offering that policy. It's just that their insurance company declined to offer that policy after being notified that they had secured the contract. So that's why we're all trying to work and reach out to different brokers to try to secure this. ultimately, even the contractor provides that, they would have added that cost to the total cost of the project as it was being bid out. So ultimately, the city pays for it as part of the overall project. It's just a matter of having a quote, them rescinding on that because of the high risk of the project, and then just declining offering it at all. So we're helping, everybody's sort of helping to try to secure something. We just haven't been able to find anybody other than Marco Marine at this point at such a high premium.
So I think, Randy, you had a little bit of industry shift here during the time of award and delivery.
Totally understood.
Yeah. Can we have a motion to increase the approved provision for builder's risk insurance for the Marina Dock Rehabilitation Project by an amount not to exceed $35,000?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Randy. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Susan. Nicole, you want to roll call us, please?
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry, Desiree.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, there are other, ATM has done other projects, and Falmouth Dredging, also has done other projects without builder's risk. We're not required to do it. I think it's a smart thing to do, although it's a high premium. But the city can decide not to, to take on the risk, and then, then we're
Bad idea.
potentially
Bad idea.
disappointing.
Bad idea.
So I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying that it's a smart thing for us to do, even though the
We've been through
premium-
enough contractor issues.
Yeah, Desiree, I hear you, but this is smart money. It may be more than we certainly wanted to spend on smart money, but I think it's smart money. Nicole, go ahead, please. Sorry.
Absolutely. Councilmember Buchanan?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Moy? Councilmember Ward?
Aye.
Councilmember Bell?
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman?
Aye.
Councilmember Popson?
Aye.
Mayor Carroll?
Aye.
Chair Pounds?
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you very much. Miscellaneous business. Next meeting is 6 p.m. Tuesday, November 17th, 2020. We do not, Desiree, have a need for executive session tonight, given our comments on the lease. Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, yes, sir.
can we have a little publicity for a event we're having this Saturday night? I think for
Absolutely.
recreation. Norma Jean, would like to fill us
Norma
in?
Jean?
Yes, our Ghostly Tide Tails, going to be at the front beach. We're going to use the nice walkway there right off of the municipal parking lot. So then you just cross the street there. We'll have the tiki torches. And then we've got some performers from the Crab Pot Players that will be telling stories. And Jimmy said, I think he had 60 stories to tell. And I told him he had 60 minutes. So
We cut it down.
so we do have more barrels this year. We're trying to distance everyone, but we're not going to serve hot chocolate. Everybody's on their own. But we're looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great night. So everybody come on out.
Very good.
Norma Jean, isn't that free parking? And also the event's free too, right?
That's correct. So the big municipal lot's waiting for you.
I guess we have 2 weekends coming back to back, right, with events.
That's right. And actually, I just sent the chief email. We have about 45 golf carts that have registered to be in the golf cart parade. So we're really excited about that, and look forward to working together with police department to make this happen.
Nice. Susan, comment?
Yes, thank you. If I'm not mistaken, I think I heard that this may be our last meeting with our city attorney, Julia Copeland. So I think it would be in order for us to thank her for her service for us for the past 2 years. So thank you very much. And I'm sure everybody would like to join in wishing you good luck in your new endeavor.
And sorely missed
Thank
from
you.
this side, for sure.
Thank you,
Thank
Julia.
you, guys. It's been a fun ride. I appreciate it.
Well done.
Fun, is that what they call it?
That's what she said, Susan. She
Apparently.
said fine, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I've not heard
Thank
it.
you, guys.
She's not
It's been
going
a
to
joy.
resist.
No, good.
She's not going to resist being away from us. I've truly enjoyed working with Julia. She's an absolute lovely person, and I think we've all done that, and I can speak to all the staff to just say that we're gonna miss you.
Oh, thank you. I'll miss you guys too.
I can see Jim Hinchy smiling real big one.
I was just looking at your haircut, Jimmy.
It's turned a little gray.
Jim, welcome to the club here.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're glad
Thank
to
you,
have
everyone.
Thank you, Julia, very much. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor.
Aye.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good
Thanks so
night.
much.